Partnerships for Success capacity building workshops. We do a capacity building workshop every other month about, and it's just to really learn more, pull in an expert in that sort of subject matter and learn together about how we can improve our public health strategies in South Region. And so, as y'all know, the P4S program is a public health program at the Institute for Public Strategies. We're funded by SAMHSA to really address the root causes of substance misuse in the region. And we look at factors like access to information, whether there's an information gap in the region. We also look at park inequities, how much access do our community members actually have to green space and park space that we know contributes to their mental and physical wellness. And we also put a lot of cultural and arts programs together for our South Bay community members to really connect them to the social and community context that we have here in the South. And so really trying to highlight those aspects for community members so they feel seen, so they feel welcomed, and so they can participate and eventually advocate alongside us. That's our hope, that we get as many community members as possible to advocate with us to improve that community health in South Region. So with that said, I will pass the mic over to our Youth in Action team. I'm very excited to introduce to y'all Lisette Munoz, who's program manager, Marcus Fisher, who's a youth coordinator, and Sebastian Montiel, who is our prevention specialist assistant. I will, let them take over from here.
Thank you, Brenny. If we could just get the slides at the beginning. Thank you, Claude. Well, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to explore getting creative with youth organizing. And we really appreciate the P4S team for inviting us to share about the Youth in Action program and our approach to providing relevant and engaging programming for young people in the South Bay and border communities. So we'll go ahead and introduce our program staff and then follow up with an icebreaker question for the whole group. And so I'll pass it to Brenny. Y'all I already know who Brenny is, but I'll pass it to Brenny and then we'll go down the line.
Yeah, I'm just happy to introduce the staff. As I said, I am the program director of the Youth in Action program, but we have really the team is run by the three other folks that you see pictured there, Lisette, Marcus, and Sebastian.
Yep. Awesome. And then I go by she, her pronouns. Marcus goes by he, him, and Sebastian goes by he, they. Yeah, we'll get right into our icebreaker. So now that you know a little bit about us, we want to get to know who's all in the virtual space with us. So using the chat box, if you haven't already, actually, please share your name, preferred pronouns, and your email that folks can connect with you afterwards. And we'll answer the following prompt. So I'm going to ask everybody to think back to when you were a young person, so when you were a youth, and remember that trusted adult ally that you had or maybe didn't have. And so answer the following questions. How did they influence you? And what were the qualities that they had that made you trust them? So I'll give folks a few minutes. We'll give it to like 9, 12, 13. So in the chat box or answering, thinking back to a trusted adult ally that you had when you were a youth or didn't have, and how did they influence you? You know, what were the qualities that they had that made you trust them?
It's a really difficult question. I'm having a hard time thinking of an adult ally for myself. So that's okay as well. If you guys feel like maybe you didn't have an adult ally, feel free to, if you're comfortable, mention that in the chat.
Awesome. I'm seeing some really great stories in the chat right now being shared. And like Bernie mentioned, if there wasn't an adult ally that was there for you, definitely feel free to, if you want to express that in the chat as well, or maybe thinking about if there was a trusted adult ally, like what would you want from that adult ally, maybe? I can go ahead and share a little bit. For me, the adult ally that I had was my track coach, and he actually knew my mom when she was pregnant with me in high school. And so I was really surprised once I realized that he knew my family. And so he pretty much knew me when I was an infant. And once I got to high school, and it was a weird coincidence that I ended up in his class and then I ended up doing track. And so he was really, my support system when I was going through a lot of mental health challenges, a lot of, issues at home. It was easy to talk to him and share my emotions with him um and be able to pray together and just provide that extra support that I was needing at the time. Um, so really just being that emotional support really helped me out. And they influenced me in a lot of ways. To this day, a lot of the time I think about him and it just motivates me to keep showing up for the young people that are in my community. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional a little bit. Um, but yeah, it's adult allies really make a difference in lives. And so thank you all for kind of taking yourself back a little bit into, when you were a young person and thinking about that, because it is a hard conversation sometimes, whether it's, thinking about somebody that has positively impacted your life or maybe, thinking about the lack of adult allies. So thank you all for being a little bit vulnerable in this space. And yeah, I want to see if we can have maybe 3 volunteers share a little bit about their answers. And another reminder that this is a safe and brave space where we can express emotions that might come up as we share about those people that have impacted our lives in a positive way. So want to see if we can get 3 folks, and please feel free to unmute and share if you're in a space to do so. Alexis?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing. I'll go. I like my story. Obviously, I'm biased, but I think it's special. So I met my adult ally in my sophomore year of high school in my honors bio class, and we were supposed to turn in our homework every day, and I didn't do the homework, and so I cheated. I was copying someone's paper or whatever, and then I went up, and Mr. Sandoval had a stamp, and he would stamp your paper if you did your homework. And so I tried to grab the stamp while he wasn't looking and stamp my homework because, those 5 points were so important back then. And he called me up after class and he was like, "Hey, Alexis, I noticed that my stamp is missing. And the way that your stamp is stamped on your paper was in a rush or, the ink bled a little bit through the paper because I was stamping and then ran to go turn in my homework." And he's like, "I know you cheated. I know that. I know it. So let's do better." And instead of being disciplinary or angry or punitive, he just loved on me a little bit more. And he was like, "Just do your homework. And if you don't know how to do it, let's help each other and get it done." And from then on, I was like, wow, now I feel like complete trash because I tried to cheat and steal these 5 points. And it turns out that this man is actually very understanding and caring. So still my friend to this day. I see him all the time. I coach now at that high school that I went to, and so I see him in the hallways, and it's really important. I love it. Thanks.
Oh my goodness, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing, and really glad to see that you guys are actually still in touch and able to still keep that connection. That's awesome. Can I get someone else to share a little bit? Alrighty.
I think, oh, sorry, I was gonna share really quick.
No, yeah, go ahead. Definitely feel free.
Yeah, my English teacher, Miss Gebler, in my community college, she was like the best example of a teacher that there could be. She really encouraged me to continue with my writing, and she was a creative writing teacher, so that was where we really got to explore everything. And there were a lot of students in there that were struggling when it came to reading, and she never um messed with, I guess, like their grades or anything until the very end of the year. There was no, you have to get it done by this week or anything. It was literally you could take the whole semester to go at your own pace. And that was incredible because it got most of the students, if not all of us, to get through our work. And yeah, and I didn't talk to her. I met two of my best friends in that class, and then I didn't talk to her for a couple years. And then right as I graduated, the college I transferred to, I got lunch with her, and it was like just talking with a best friend. It was really awesome. And so she really cares about her students. And gosh, she's retired now, but she did such great work for a couple decades. And yeah, I'll always remember her.
Oh, I love that. I love the flexibility that she was able to provide for folks, and yeah, life circumstances, understanding that things happen, and you know, not everybody learns at the same pace. And so that's really great that she provided that for y'all. Awesome. Now, Flor, you like to share?
Yeah, so for me, I had a cross country coach that just really pushed me. I think because for me, I mean, I said this a little bit in the chat, but I was a very shy person growing up. I think in some regards, like that's always something that I'm working on. And so she just like did not let me hide. And I'm like really thankful for that because I think in a lot of ways, that's where I was like most uncomfortable. And I think that both in like life and like cross country and like running and sports, like uncomfortability is like where you grow. And especially like as a young person, like I feel like a lot of young people don't feel that like empowerment to grow necessarily. And so to have like her as an adult ally, I'm like really thankful for her. And yeah, like we still keep in touch. She sends me like pictures of her kids and stuff, and it's like so crazy to think about just like, almost being like how many years out of high school am I? A few. But yeah. I just love her.
That's awesome. Yes, those adult allies sometimes push us a little bit and challenge us to get out of our comfort zone, which I think is very necessary in those kind of teenage, young adult years. That's how you learn. So awesome. Thank you all for sharing. We really appreciate you all, sharing a little bit about yourself and the people that have impacted you. And so we'll get right into what Youth in Action is. And so before we do that, we'll just quickly go over, who are we? And so the Youth in Action Jóvenes en Acción program is a program under the Institute for Public Strategies. And so the Institute for Public Strategies is a nonprofit public health organization that works alongside communities to build community power, challenge systems of inequity, protect health, and improve quality of life. And so we do that through our approach to community transformation, or our ACT model. Well, some of you might have already seen this, but this is pretty much the framework that we use across all IPS programs. So we're constantly shifting between media advocacy, community organizing, data and research, policy and system change, and especially sustainability. So wanted to make sure that these things are long lasting. And don't just, yeah, if our program doesn't exist in the future, we want to make sure that the youth at least are still able to have the tools, knowledge, skills, all the things to be able to advocate for themselves and their community across the lifespan. And so we'll get into our program overview. So the Youth in Action program, we serve youth and young adults between the ages of 12 to 26 who live, work, go to school, or play in the South regions of San Diego. We empower young people to create positive social and environmental change through leadership development opportunities, organizing within the Youth in Action Coalition, and becoming civically engaged. Our mission is to equip youth with the skills, knowledge, and connections to advocate for themselves and their community needs while recognizing the impact of historical trauma, community conditions on their mental health opportunities and life outcomes. And so the Youth in Action program received funding in November of 2021, and we were fully staffed by February 2022. And so the majority of our work since then has been alongside, our Youth Advisory Board program staff have really focused on establishing a network of partners like nonprofit organizations who also serve youth, schools, clubs, colleges, universities, all whose goals align with ours. We also focus on, building relationships with young people throughout the South region by hosting listening sessions, wanting to get, their voices amplified, hosting coalition meetings, workshops, events, and finally creating engaging and responsive programming to youth's needs and the issues that they're currently facing. So with that said, we'll get into our objectives for today. So our first objective is to recognize the impact of health inequities, community conditions, and historical trauma on folks of all ages in disinvested communities. The second objective explores what it means to be an adult ally and support youth-led initiatives. The third objective is acknowledging and accepting program hurdles and challenges as valuable lessons learned. And our final objective touches on creating quality programming based on what youth share and responding to those needs. So for our objective one, it will focus on three big picture risk factors that have impacted youth and young adults in the South Bay and border communities. And so for our program, when we talk about the South Bay and border communities, based on listening sessions we had at the very beginning stages of the program, for us, that means any youth or young adults in Barrio Logan, all the way down to San Isidro, maybe living in Tijuana or working and coming to school in San Diego. And so these root or systemic issues have negatively impacted young people's mental health, overall well-being, community involvement, and opportunities. We can go to the next slide. I'm going to ask folks really quickly if we can type in the chat, which are the 5 social determinants of health that impact individuals in a community? So which 5 social determinants of health impact individuals in a community? Education, economic stability, sorry, economic stability, education, health care access. And that's okay, Janelle, that's okay. We are all learning together today. Community and support. Yes. All righty. So the 5 social determinants of health, you guys are all correct. So they're social and community context, neighborhood and built environment, healthcare access and quality, education access and quality, and economic stability. And so when we're thinking about all of these different components of, that the youth and young adults within the South Bay and border communities exist in, so the social and community context, we are right next to we are on the US-Mexico border. So there's a lot of history and traumatic experiences that have happened regarding, family separations, injuries and even deaths from folks trying to cross into the US. And so there's a lot of social and community context in that sense where there is historical trauma. And so in addition to, being a border town or being a border community, we also faced the COVID-19 pandemic, which impacted communities all across the US. But specifically for our South Bay and border communities, the COVID response during the pandemic was very detrimental to the health and well-being of communities of color and low-income communities. And when we're thinking about the neighborhood and built environment, I'm really looking at the lack of parks and green spaces, being in a food desert, while also being a fast food swamp, looking at walkability of sidewalks, concrete jungles, pollutants in the air and in the water, and also any barriers that folks are facing with public transportation. Those are all stressors that our community members are facing on a daily basis. And so looking at also, healthcare access and quality, about 1 in 10 people in the US don't have health insurance. So people without health insurance are likely to not have a primary care provider, and they might not be able to afford the healthcare services and medications that they desperately need. And now looking at education access and quality. And so Chula Vista National City have the lowest percentage of adults 25 years old and older with a bachelor's degree or higher. And that was in 2021. And then finally, looking at economic stability, all of the South Bay had the highest percentage of unemployment than the rest of San Diego County in 2021, and that's excluding Coronado, obviously. And so thinking about all of these different social determinants of health that have impacted, the way that our youth cope with all of these daily stressors, the way they navigate through the stressors, and yeah, so these social determinants of health have impacted young people, how they, like I mentioned, how they cope with daily stressors, their self-esteem, their perspectives, and even their involvement in decision-making that affects their lives. And so recognizing and validating their experiences is the next step, or is the first step in our trauma-informed approach to supporting youth as they create a community that they envision for their future. And so again, that trauma-informed approach I mentioned is really what we use within the Youth in Action program. And so we always recognize and validate any youth experiences that they share with us. We're supporting youth needs and addressing those barriers for them whenever possible. And if we can't do it ourselves, we're connecting them with folks that can. We're creating safe and brave spaces where they're able to express themselves, where they're able to exist just as themselves. And we're making sure that our approach is youth-led and adult-supported. So giving them the tools or showing them the tools, so they can be able to advocate for themselves long-term. Awesome. And so I'll pass it to my team to share a little bit about what our objective 2 is.
Thank you, Lisette. Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Marcus Fisher, and I am the Assistant Youth Coordinator for Youth in Action, Jóvenes and Acción. So now that we've identified key issues that young people are facing, we can now discuss how to be adult allies and foster youth-led and adult-supported spaces. Some of you have heard us use the term adult ally, but essentially, an adult ally is an adult who provides young people with resources, insight, support, that they may need to accomplish their vision or goals. And this can look like different things, depending on the program's focus, staffing, funding, and strict deliverables, and other factors that also impact the program's capacity and flexibility. For Youth in Action, for the Youth in Action program, staff demonstrate their allyship by consistently listening to youth, following up with suggestions, supporting and executing their ideas, encouraging autonomy, addressing barriers. For instance, providing transportation is a barrier for many youth, and connecting them to resources and spaces and opportunities that align with their passions. Next slide, please. So I'll share the example that we have with all of you regarding an event that one of our youth in our youth advisory board was interested in hosting. This was a specific youth advisory board member graduating in this past spring, and she was going to start. She's starting college right now, and a couple of weeks ago she just began. Before she started college, she wanted to host a clothing swap to provide a fun and free space for youth and adults in the community to access gender inclusive clothing in a sustainable way. Our program staff met with her on a weekly basis, depending on her availability, and gave her the tools to put together a flyer and guide her through the different steps in planning the process. We took her to do in-person outreach where she gained hands-on experience engaging with community members, and with the support of the program staff, this youth-led um, opportunity held a clothing swap in our Imperial Beach office where people of all ages came out to donate clothes and left with clothes. We also sang karaoke and we had a very, very fun time. Next slide, please. So from that, there are three main things that we want to take away from that example. One, instead of turning down a youth's idea, we hear them out and walk them through the process so that they gain the knowledge and the tools along the way. The second thing that we learned from that is the timeframes and availability of youth look different than ours. So it's crucial that we work around their schedules as much as possible. And three, things don't always go as planned, and that's when we model that it's okay to make adjustments as needed. Next slide, please. Objective 3. So before we get into our next objective, can you raise your hand or type in the chat yes, that if you or your team have planned something that you thought was going to be super engaging and attractive to young people, and then it wasn't successful. So yeah, in the chat, or if you can raise your hand as a reaction, how many of you created an event where you thought it was going to be really engaging and exciting, and then it wasn't, or youth didn't show up or anything like that. Okay, I see my hand there. Yes. Yeah, it happens, and you gotta. It always happens. Yes, you gotta roll. I like to say you roll with that resistance. You gotta. It's a trial and error every time to see what youth are into and what they're going to be going to. Sometimes they'll go to a big event where it's like a party, and then you try to replicate that, and then the next time there's less people. So as much as we make an effort to do all the great things we shared with all of y'all, things don't always go as planned. With much trial and error, we have learned how important it is to remain very flexible as a program and team. Huge thanks to our funder for that specifically, because that isn't the case for many other youth serving programs. For the third objective, we dig a little bit deeper into how we recognize and accept program challenges, as engaging youth is a non-linear process, similar to almost everything in life. One thing to keep in mind is program challenges can evolve over time, which is why pivoting is crucial in our line of work. At the program's initial stages, most people were still going to school or working from home due to COVID-19. Because of this, we started the program by providing virtual spaces and workshops for youth to get to know each other, and the program stayed engaged, but it wasn't the case. Youth were basically kind of either showing up for all of them or one of them. Based on listening sessions we conducted at the beginning of the program, we put together a list of events that fell within youth's interest after that. We tried a virtual sala, which folks could hang out virtually either in a group breakout room or independently with other folks as well too. We had a virtual mental health workshops, definitely the most well-attended workshops we had in our first year, and eventually in-person group outings like the Padre games that we have here in San Diego, the outdoor yoga session that we planned, and also a native plant hike. Unfortunately, with all of that planned, with all that intended engagement, we got very little engagement from youth that we were trying to work with. So two things to keep in mind that we clearly missed: the recognition that there were two things that were clearly missing: recognizing that the community and everyone was sick of virtual spaces. We needed to begin to create strong partnerships with schools and other organizations and build relationships with young people in person. After not having the best success with getting youth to show up, we focused on intentionally learning on some amazing leaning on some amazing partners that share similar goals and serve in the same region, like Rainbow Spaces, Casa Familiar, Breaking Down Barriers, and Arts, A Reason to Survive. This is one way we try to meet youth where they are already at. One of the youth advisory board members told us that very, very early on in their engagement with us, they appreciated our program for not being territorial or being afraid to partner with other groups. If it's one thing about youth, they read and respond to the energy of the room and the staff, the adult allies. Partner organizations and schools help build Youth in Action's credibility and presence. The big lesson we took is that together we are much stronger than divided, um, as we work as our workforces on different aspects of social determinants of health. Together we meet with holistic needs of youth and young people in South Bay and the border regions as well too. And I'll pass it off to my colleague here for the next portion for objective 4.
Thank you, Marcus. So in this final objective, we will be touching on accommodating to the youth's availability and life circumstances, focusing holistically on the youth's development to create quality programming based on youth needs. So this is a two-part process where you are, one, constantly collecting data, and two, creating equity-based solutions that respond to the data collected. So for many of our programs, data collection is essential for reporting and informing future projects. Our program is constantly collecting qualitative and quantitative data using informal and formal methods. Some examples of informal methods include conversation during events, coalition meetings, or Instagram polls. Simply asking insightful questions like, how has the new school schedule changes felt like for you? What achievement are you most proud of? What challenges are you facing right now? And how can we best support you? Are forms of methods. Formal methods of data collection include listening sessions, in-person or virtual, or our youth advisory board surveys done during coalition meetings. While the quantitative data focuses on numbers, the qualitative data tells a story. The information collected gives our team member a better understanding of youth's current issues and how our program can help address their needs. Next slide, please. And the second portion is taking the data collected and strategizing around how to create quality and equity-based solutions or programming. We do this by meeting youth where they are. Although we focus on the Latinx experience, we welcome youth of all backgrounds, life experiences, and identities to join. Because many of our youth come from different regions, schools, backgrounds, and life circumstances, it is important for us to create intentional spaces and programming that meet all of their needs as best as possible. Based on our experiences engaging young people, we know that some youth might be skeptical or trusting youth serving programming because of negative past experiences. Some youth might be overly involved and some might not have any experience at all being in a group. A big factor in youth engagement is recognizing their barriers, including scheduling and transportation, which we've touched. With the wide age range that we serve, not all program participants work a 9-to-5 job. Some of our older program participants might, but not the middle school, high school age, which means they are only available to us after school or work or on the weekends. It is important for our program to schedule meetings and events in the afternoon, evening hours, and or on Saturdays when possible. Remaining flexible is key. Our team also provides transportation to and from meetings or events based on our capacity and hosts meeting events in a location that is accessible by public transportation. In addition to meeting the barriers they face, we practice accommodating youth in various other ways, such as maintaining responsiveness, providing multiple reminders for events and meetings, and even using social media or text as a form of communication, if that is something they prefer. These accommodations are important because they show youth that they are seen, heard, and missed when they can't attend one day. Youth carry personalities, experiences, preferences, and lifestyles. Dedicating time for relationship building is key for meeting the goals of the program and, more importantly, the youth's personal and professional goals. Youth are more than program deliverables, and youth are people. Next slide. And I will pass it back to Lisette to go over our activity for today.
Awesome. Thank you, Sebastian. So on your screen is a QR code or a bit.ly link, whichever works for you right now. And this is going to take you to a Jamboard. And so a Jamboard is an interactive way to, sorry, just getting a link here. It's a very interactive platform that you can use if you want to collectively work on things, brainstorm, do interactive activities like this one. And so specifically, this one specifically is for assessing where programs are as far as youth engagement goes. And so the Hearts Ladder of Youth Engagement was presented to us during one of our funders' capacity building workshops that they offer us. And so you'll see on that first slide, there is a ladder with all of the rankings. And so starting from the bottom, where it's, let me take a step back really quick. So while we go through this activity, please keep in mind where our programs lie on the Hearts Ladder of Youth Engagement. Sometimes it's not in our control. And so if feelings come up as you're assessing your own program, please don't feel like any shame, or this is really for us to be more solution focused. And if you're not where you're at right now, we'll get into a little bit later on, maybe making some goals to get to where you do want your program to be. So as you're reflecting and thinking about this, definitely don't want folks to have any negative feelings towards themselves. And if feelings do come up, please feel free to let us know. If you need to take a moment to step away or whatever your needs are, just let us know. We'll get right into it. And so, as I mentioned, this was a tool that was provided to us through Elevate Youth California. And so at the bottom of the ladder, we have manipulation. And so what that looks like is youth involvement used by adults to communicate adults' messages. Then we have decoration. So adults use youth to promote or support a cause without informing the youth. So the youth are not involved in design or decision making. Then we have tokenism. So symbolic representation by few may not have a genuine voice, may be asked to speak for the group that they represent. And then we have assigned but informed. So youth did not initiate, but they understand the assignment and have some sense of ownership within it. And we have consulted and informed. So it's designed and run by youth who consult with youth, and youth make the recommendations that are considered adults. Phrasing is throwing me off a little bit right there. Adult initiated shared decisions with youth. So that's designed and run by adults who share decision making with youth. And then we have youth initiated and directed. And so that looks like designed and run by youth and decisions made by youth. And then youth initiated, shared decision with adults. That looks like designed and run by youth who share decisions with adults. And then at the top of the ladder, we have youth and adult initiated and directed. So this is designed and run by youth and adults in full partnership. So co-creating these things from the beginning, pretty much. And so on that second slide, we're asking you to rank where your organization or program lies on the Hearts Ladder of Youth Engagement. So I'll give folks about a minute here, 2 minutes, so we can look at that first slide, really start reflecting. And then once you're ready, please feel free to add in your sticky note or text box where your organization lies on the ladder.
And just in case any of you aren't familiar with Jamboard, you have this sidebar over here where you can sort of use the little features to add a sticky note, to add a picture, an image, to add shapes, to add a text box, or to actually write things down using your cursor, if that's something that you're comfortable doing.
Thank you, Brittany. I'm adding in, I just saw your message in the chat. So for the consulted and informed, it should say designed and run by youth who consult with youth, but youth make recommendations that are considered by adults. We're just missing the by right there.
And then just so y'all know, I went back to the first slide so you can see the definitions, but if you can please add or rank yourself in that second slide.
So then we have some folks ranking themselves right now on that second slide. I'll give folks 1 more minute. So at 9:48, we'll head over to that third slide.
And I just want to remind y'all that it is okay if you find your program on the lower end of the ladder. We're all learning here. This should be a safe space. Hopefully you feel safe, but also let's remind ourselves that some of our, the system in which these programs exist is sometimes directs us to manipulate it or decorate or see youth as tokens. And so please, just consider that this is not any one individual's fault. We do have deliverables that we understand are pushed by our grantees or contracts. And so this is just something that we can use to really improve the way we run the program, despite the systemic and sort of pressures that we feel that are definitely unfair, and we know that sometimes kind of push us down the ladder.
Yes, thank you for adding that, Brittany. Ready, I think everybody is, oops, just hit my watch on the table. I hope everybody is, yeah, already has their sticky notes on the Jamboard. If you need another minute, please feel free to unmute and let me know. But feel free to finalize your thoughts. And if you are reflecting a little more and want to go back and change where you're at too, that's totally fine as well. We'll go on to the third slide. And so want to discuss a little bit, was it difficult or easy to assess your organization or program using the Hart's Ladder of Youth Engagement? Then following question, what feelings came up for you while ranking your organization or program? Definitely encourage folks, if you want to unmute and share out loud, I can type in your notes as you're speaking, or feel free to just add it onto the Jamboard, whichever you prefer. Janelle?
Thank you. I feel like it was difficult to make this decision because I'm not fully involved in interacting with our students, right? But then my role is brand new, and now I'm being told that, I need to provide new programs and services to our students. So figuring out what exists is a challenge, because everybody, is assigned to certain roles, and I'm not really sure who's involved with what. But the way I've been kind of witnessing things and just, observing, I've come to find that there's not much opportunity for youth to be involved in the school culture or school decisions, and that there is an extreme desire to be involved, but they just kind of need a more foundational outlet. And I think the teachers need a little bit more too of motivation and education on how to support the youth. So I guess that's a good starting point. But to, like I said, it's kind of hard figuring out, like, where do I start?
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Janelle, for sharing that. So what are there any like specific feelings that might have come up for you, like while you were reflecting on that?
I would say confusion, and then too, like, intimidation. It's intimidating to feel like, okay, am I starting from the beginning? Or, two, it's like maybe something, like I said, already exists, but I don't know to what capacity. And then it's like, am I going to be stepping on, somebody's toes? So I really kind of like speaking out loud right now. I know that I need to be more assertive in asking for better direction to answer these questions, so that I could make a more determined decision about, like, okay, where to go when it comes to supporting the youth.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Janelle. Kira?
Yeah, hi. I think it was easy at first to pocket where I was, which was, let me check again. It was like assigned but informed, and then it's a toss-up between consulted and assigned, because our South Bay Youth for Change work is going into an already established leadership club. And it's a hard balance to give youth the space to run, because we have our core four, like our president, vice president, treasurer, co-chair, and those are all high schoolers. And I want to find a balance, and it's really hard because in the beginning there's a lot of introduction about this is the work we do and what we do, and it was for weeks, like once a week, it was a lot of me talking and not a lot of responding. Then the balance became, let's do a brainstorming activity to kind of let them use their leadership skills. And then we finally brought in a third provider to come in and do a youth leadership series training. And that kind of made a shift, which was good. But it's trying to balance like resources given that don't mask or take up their space. And it's very clear to me that in the beginning, it was taking a lot of time and space from them. So I agree with, is it Janelle? Yes, I agree with you, Janelle. The intimidation specifically, definitely. I feel like it goes both ways, where the activity itself is a little bit intimidating, but also the work with youth can be really intimidating, because you don't know, you want to do a good job, and then you're trying to curate a program that ends up, like I said before, kind of taking time away and voices away from youth. So yeah, just finding that balance can be a part of the, the trials of working with youth engagement.
Yes, definitely. And so you mentioned like at the beginning of, when you were first engaging with those youth, that it was a lot more of you talking and not as much engagement from them. And so one thing I think, or that we face within Youth in Action, is I think a lot of times youth have never seen another young person in a leadership role or know what that can look like. And it can be, I think the uncertainty can be like intimidating. Definitely like how, we're having those similar feelings with knowing where to start with, providing these spaces for youth to feel empowered and to take more of, have more decision making in the things that are happening around them and the spaces that they're occupying, like that leadership club, Kira. Um, yeah, thank you for sharing. Is there any other folks that are wanting to share a little bit if, it was easy or difficult to assess your program and sharing any feelings that came up for you if you're comfortable? Mhm. Alrighty, if there's still some thoughts out there, please. Yep, there we go. Thank you, Sebastian. Feel free to add it into the chat and we'll get those added in to the Jamboard as well. And so on the fourth slide, we're going to be asking y'all to rank where you'd like to be or where you'd like your organization or program to be. And so that's taking into consideration any barriers you face with funding, capacity, all of that stuff. So rank where you'd like your organization or program to be. And if it's helpful, maybe think a year from now, where would you like your program to be a year from now? Because these things definitely take time and trial and error. Just how the Youth in Action program has experienced, it's taken a lot to finally get to a space where youth are comfortable expressing their ideas, sharing their, what it is that they're experiencing, sharing about those issues they face. So where would you like to see your program in a year from now? So we'll give folks till 10 to add in where they'd like their organization or program to be on the ladder, and then we'll go into kind of thinking about what are some action items that we can take to get to that place. I'll give folks one more minute and then we'll get moving to the next slide. So rank where you'd like your organization or program to be, considering funding, capacity, or any other barriers that you and your program face. Alrighty, we'll get going to the next slide. So let's discuss what next steps will you take to get to where you want your organization or program to be on the Hearts ladder. So maybe for this section we can unmute and be able to discuss this, maybe give each other some ideas. Yeah. Does anyone have any action items that they're already thinking about maybe for getting to where they want to be as far as youth engagement?
Maybe the Youth in Action team can talk a little bit about how they want to move up the ladder.
I have an example, or at least something I can suggest for folks if they don't know where to go right now. We rely on our listening sessions every year for feedback from youth and what they want to see in their community. So it can be very simple, informal. You can do it virtually like this, but sometimes it's actually better to do it in person because they like to discuss, the things that are around their neighborhoods and, or how they feel about things. They get excited when they hear from adults, like, what do you think about this? What is your opinion on this thing? Because I can tell you, like, with one of the first ones that we did at the Chula Vista Arts, Art Walk, we had a group of youth that just lit up, and they were talking about redlining. They were talking about disparities within their community, how where money is being placed in like their school districts and stuff like that. So you see them light up, and when they actually get to have a platform that they can actually express their views and stuff like that. So if you're wanting to increase or elevate where you're at right now, I would suggest starting there. Have an informal um, focus group or listening session at your organization or at your school. And the way to also get you to participate in that is having an incentive. They want their opinions heard, but also they want to get something out of it. We don't want to tokenize them, we don't, or anything like that. So we want to partner with them. So as cliche as it sounds, but like, a pizza party, is like, can always be a thing if you have that capacity for that. But also providing a gift card to Starbucks, as part of their participation as well too can work.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that, Marcus. I think even one thing that for Youth in Action that we've been able to have more success with getting youth in these, cleanup events that we're having, these coalition meetings, is offering community service and letters of recommendation for those youth that are coming back and building a relationship with us, like offering them those different incentives. Because as much as we would love to pay the youth for their time every single time they show up, it's not as sustainable with our funding restrictions that most programs have. And so yeah, definitely any way that you can and even asking youth in those listening sessions, like, what is an incentive to you? Like, what would make you want to keep showing up? And so the data collection part is really important for figuring out, like, yeah, what next steps can you take that are responsive to youth needs and getting yourself more, higher on that Hearts ladder of youth engagement. So for Youth in Action, I think one thing that we're going to have in the next few weeks is a Resident Leadership Academy cohort for young people. And I think once we have a set group of youth that are equipped with all of the tools and knowledge that they'll gain from the RLA, and we're hoping that that'll kind of ignite more of that motivation to have more of that leadership role. Because currently, like, we set an agenda for coalition meetings. We, get input from the youth if they are available. If they're not, then we have to go ahead and move forward with the agenda that we have set. But wanting to change that and shift more to, youth are the ones that are telling us, like, this is what we want on the agenda. And then taking initiative and being able to facilitate that specific section, and us providing the support and the preparation beforehand, so that they're the ones that are really gaining the skills and the tools to be able to do this. Even outside of Youth in Action, they can do it within their school and be able to advocate for themselves there. or within their community, if it's, an issue that they have to go and talk to a city council member, whatever that looks like. Sebastian?
Yeah, I just wanted to further your thought on, I think even reflecting back on our icebreaker is like, what do you think stands out from those people that like represents what an adult allies are? Is them going out of their way or maybe doing that extra step to make sure that you're comfortable and you're kind of expressing yourself. So I think even kind of taking that first initial step of being uncomfortable and being up in these spaces where maybe you might not have the most engaged youth, or you might. So it's just kind of taking that first step and seeing running with the flow of things with the group of youth. And yeah, like some youth might not necessarily have that advocacy like experience, so they might need to be exposed to an ally that might make them feel more comfortable. And then vice versa, there might be youth that are like ready, so it's like you have to be flexible and be open to both of those things, so that can definitely help increase the heart position in the Hearts ladder, is kind of being flexible to both and taking that first step.
Thank you, Seba. And I see a really cool note right here in the Jamboard. So letting youth create social media posts. I think that's a great way to give youth autonomy and what messages they want to share, and what are like those pressing issues that they feel are important and that community need to know about. So definitely think that co-creating social media posts with youth is, I think it's amazing, and we're seeing more of it to where organizations are having these internship opportunities that are specifically for social media organizers. Like I know Live Well also has an internship where it's paid, and they're pretty much running a youth focused Instagram page and creating content on a weekly basis. So things like that are helping, get to where you want on that Hearts ladder, just getting creative with it and figuring out like where are the interests, where can we plug them in, and then what supports are needed to make sure that they're set up for success. So then I see we have. Thank you, Alexis, for joining us. We'll be sending out notes, the slides, and the Jamboard, so everybody has access to all of those things moving forward. Awesome. And then if there's no more to add to that 5th slide, please feel free if you do have some thoughts that are still coming up. Want to move on to a Q&A if there's any specific questions that folks have for us. Love to hear about your program and maybe any challenges you're facing right now or any goals you might have. Feel free to unmute. Janelle?
Hi. Okay, so I know that you guys mentioned, Youth in Action is for South Bay and border cities, but then you did mention Barrio Logan. So the high school I'm at is located in the Central San Diego Library here in downtown, but our students come from what I was told is at least 35 zip codes, right? So, it ranges from different areas, but, majority is that National City, Barrio Logan population. So I just wanted to see if, there is a possibility in the future with Youth in Action working with our students, even though we might kind of be at that cusp of the location you serve.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think figuring out a way that we can support y'all if those youth are attending that school and living in Logan or National City, definitely fits within like, we're serving the youth, young adults that work, go to school, live, or play in the South regions. And so definitely they fall under that category. So we can maybe chat offline and figure out how we can support you. I know that for like we've partnered with BOCI in the past, and they're looking to have more workshops within the next year. And so we can figure something out if it's like, a partnership with BOCI that we're able to go in and send your students there, or, we're coming to your students, whatever works best for them. And yeah, but definitely interested in chatting offline about that, Janelle.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll reach out to you guys via email.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there any other questions or have ideas want to walk through with the group? Alrighty. Well, we really appreciate everybody's time and attention in attending the capacity building workshop. And we hope that you feel inspired to give youth autonomy and get creative with your approach to social change and any community work that you might be doing. And so on the screen, we have a list of resources for programs and staff working with young people. And so we also encourage you to add to the resource list if you are aware of any others that are not on there, but you want to share with the rest of the group. And definitely please feel free to stay connected with us. If you want to, email, connect on social media, whatever that looks like for you, we're more than happy to connect. And yeah, thank you on behalf of the entire EYC team, and we hope you all have an amazing weekend.